Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Lamog, an instructor with Guitars for Vets Learning Center in Cav Arts, the Challenge America Veteran Arts community. Welcome to the G4V Guitar Shop, where for the next hour, our panel of guitar instructors focus on some of the popular folk and bluegrass instruments that players often pick up as a second instrument. Maybe you're interested in learning to play banjo or mandolin or ukulele or a dobro. Today, our conversation will help provide you with some background on these instruments. But before we get underway here, it's time to bring in my co-host, Daniel B. It's been quite a discussion the last month of what do we want to cover. It's a topic that we always come to is what do we want to talk about at the upcoming guitar shop? And I don't know. I came across a question that was posted as a result of the poll that you put about, what instruments do you associate with bluegrass, right? And although we listed the popular string instruments, there's a whole line of instruments that we didn't include.
Just some, they're not so much the forgotten instruments. I mean, they're out there. They're not stringed instruments, which is really basically what we're trying to cover.
Yeah.
But it'd be a novelty to maybe entertain some of the questions on that, and especially harmonica. Harmonica is used a lot as an accompanying instrument that you can actually play while you're strumming your guitar at the same time. So
few instruments like that, even like pedals and tools and things like that. And I think that at some point in time, we were thinking about focusing a future guitar shop on if you're a solo artist or if you're interested in playing for friends or family and it's just you and you want to mix things up a little bit with like playing a harmonica or maybe a drum machine, having some pre-recorded tracks. I mean, we thought, well, I wonder if that would be of interest to the community, and if it is, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know that, hey, yeah, I want to do something like that, and we'll go ahead and put the show together for that. So
the looper,
yeah, looper, exactly. So anyway, on to the show. Let's go ahead and introduce our panelists. First of all, I want to bring in Bruce Bjork. And Bruce, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and what's your role with Guitars for Vets?
I've been an instructor now for probably 10 years. I think I'm on my probably 60 plus student. Picked up the guitar in the early 60s, picked up the banjo in the late 60s, picked up the dobro, picked up the mandolin. I also play pedal steel, which is that's a whole other ball of wax. I also play electric guitar in a couple of blues bands. So I'm in two bands now that are primarily Americana style bands, and I play pedal steel, mandolin, and dobro with those bands. So it's been a good journey.
And I see that you have your instrument lineup right behind you. And off camera, I'm thinking that you have several more as well. Are these your favorites that you got?
Yeah, probably. I'm trying to think of other instruments. I have a mandolin. I have a dulcimer. I have a Guild D40 that I bought in 1967. That's an absolute cannon. I mean, it's just a really nice guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I got a Fender Telecaster that I bought. Oh my God, probably 40 years ago. I bought it used. I've got three amplifiers. That's a Boss Katana 100 with a custom cabinet. That's a pedal steel amp over there, and then I've got one of those Sparks, which is really great for practice.
Oh, geez. How are your fingertips? How's you're way beyond the callus stage, aren't you?
Yeah, my not only am I callous, but over the years I've developed arthritis in my hand from playing so much. So every 6 months they give me a shot and it kind of clears it.
That's definitely a guitar shop topic, right, Daniel? Well, very cool. Well, it's great to have you with us today. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our other panelist, and Danny Smith. Hey, Danny, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role with Guitars for Vets and maybe a little bit about your musical past?
Well, I'm actually a Guitar for Vets graduate. I graduated. I want to say it was last November, or yeah, it was last November that I graduated, and I'm on my second student teaching. I'm kind of an anomaly. I practice 2 to 3 hours each instrument, guitar and mandolin, every single day. And so, in order to keep peace with my wife, I have to give her 2 to 3 hours of card playing. Being retired makes it helpful to do that. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as my journey goes. I took up the mandolin around 2002, 2003 when I was in recruiting school in South Carolina. I went to a little bluegrass jam and just fell in love with bluegrass. And on the way home, I stopped at a pawn shop and bought a cheap mandolin. And when I got home, I realized that the action was way too high. I couldn't play it. I got so frustrated trying to learn it that I went out and I bought a mandolin kit and I put it together. And this is the very first mandolin that I built from a kit. So most of it was already done. I just had to glue it together, sand it down, finish it. This one is cracked. The top is cracked on it, so it's kind of a wall hanger. And I really, really fell in love with building. So I never really learned to play. I just started building, and I've built 5 mandolins, and I'm on number 6 mandolins. I'm on number 7 right here. And this is another one that I'm building from scratch. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the mandolin section. So I built a couple mandolins and I learned how to play. When we moved here to Washington in 2020, I hadn't touched my mandolin for 11 years, and I went to a bluegrass festival here in 2021, got motivated again, bought a banjo, and decided I wanted to learn to play. So I spent a lot of time learning banjo and mandolin, and then I got into the Guitar for Vets program. I bought this Taylor. I built this for my son back in 2005, and it was not in good shape, so I repaired it, and I play this one every day. This is my favorite guitar, and so that's my story.
Oh, awesome.
And I'm sticking to it.
All right, man. Well, it's great having you and Bruce, and we've got Daniel here. What I would like to do, let's see if I can manage this here. I'm going to take a look at everyone who's attending, and it's really great to have you on this Saturday morning, afternoon. Let's talk a little bit about how many of you have given the thought of learning to play a second instrument. So you've gone through the Guitars for Vets program, and this is an instrument. I'm interested in learning to play another instrument. And how many of you, and if it doesn't have to be your second, it could be your third. But yeah, I mean, how many of you are interested in moving on to the next instrument? That's awesome. Yeah, I got a lot of people who are saying, yep, that's me. That would be me. So let me bring the entire panel back here. Question number 1 for the panel: was guitar the first instrument you learned to play? And what was the motivation behind it? So Daniel, I'm going to start with you first.
Officially, it was the first guitar, or the guitar was the first instrument that I learned how to play. I always wanted to play piano. We had a little baby grand, and I would mess around with it, but my folks would never get me the lessons to do it. But it was guitar and then harmonica, and with guitar came lead soloing, so I learned how to use the slide. Mm-hmm. And a laptop steel. I had an uncle that was the second, that was third, somewhere in there. But if it had strings on it, it seemed like I could play it.
So my story is not too different from yours. Piano was my first instrument, and it was 10 years of playing piano. Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, the whole thing. My parents, I have to have them to thank, and I really mean that, because it was when I was 16 when I finally got my first guitar after going up to my dad, the Marine Corps drill sergeant, and going up to saying, Dad, please. I really need to learn to play guitar because this piano thing is, I think I'm done with it. But 10 years of playing and then got into the guitar. And then I have been playing that until, oh gosh, probably maybe 10 years ago when I started to look at other instruments. I just loved playing that guitar for sure. So now I'm going to go to Danny because I know you've already answered the question. But now, what is it that made you want? You started off, with a couple instruments before you got to guitar, and you then enrolled into Guitars for Vets. But maybe you can talk about. All right, I think maybe now is a good time to get that guitar experience. But can you talk a little bit about your motivation, the thoughts that encouraged you to go in that direction?
Well, for me, I back in the '80s, I loved metal and all the rock bands, Van Halen and but then I also was into electronic music like Depeche Mode. When as I got older, that I think that bluegrass jam that I went to in South Carolina really got me interested in old country bluegrass. And to me, bluegrass was the only thing in my mind. And then I really started liking the older country. That's what kind of got me leaning towards guitar, because I really liked to be able to sit and play my own, play a song. I could do it on the mandolin, I could do it with the banjo, but it just didn't sound like country. So to be able to sit down in my music room and strum through an old Merle Haggard song, I just love that kind of stuff. And the flat picking has really gotten into my soul, and I eat up flat picking guitar. So Brian Sutton and Clay Hess and some of these guys, these bluegrass guys that are just amazing pickers. Tony Rice, you could go on and on. There's just so many really good ones. But that's what's got me. My passion for guitar has really been the old country and the bluegrass flat picking.
Vince Gill for the Challenge America, very good bluegrass picker.
Vince Gill's a good picker, yeah.
No kidding, yeah. And then, of course, I mean, he touches on so many styles. Hey, so let me ask you this before we get into the instrumentation section. And Bruce, you're on deck here with banjo. What maybe you can kind of share your thoughts on, what our community should be thinking about in terms of, if I decide I really want to make this jump to the next instrument, maybe you can kind of share in, your experience, the thing that made you finally come to that decision. I'm going to do this. And Daniel, let me start with you. Let me, begin with, when you were at that point where, all right, I need to do this because.
Well, I'm actually learning how to play mandolin right now. And I need to do it because I've been wanting to pick up some new types of genres to play into. I do play a little bluegrass, but I wanted to go the one step further. I also be able to play some Celtic music. And at the same time, I'm still working on learning the laptop steel, which is kind of the same thing as a dobro. You're working on the same tunings. So
let's see. For me, it was after guitar. I think I wanted to learn to play bass guitar. It's kind of like, well, why not? Well, I can't be that different. But the reality for me was, yeah, it's different. There's a different style. There's a different way to approach it. You can't play it like a guitar player because then they'll know you're a guitar playing bass player. And it's not always a good thing. There, for some of the musicians that I've worked with, it's kind of like, no, I've been playing since I was 10 years old, and I studied. So you're right. I'll let you go ahead and be the subject matter expert on that, Mr. Bass Player. I'll just stay with my guitar. Bruce, what are your thoughts? What are the things that made you want to make the jump to that next instrument? What was the selling point for you to say, yes, I'm going for it?
Well, it just goes back to when I was in the Navy. There were a couple of my shipmates and some of the pilots. We used to have a bluegrass jam pretty regularly, and at that point, I had played I had played guitar for quite a while, and I was into flat picking. And then one of the guys was a banjo player, and I bought his banjo. He was selling it, and that kind of got me. It was just a thing. He was a friend of mine. He actually ended up. His name is John Summers, Sommers. When he got out of the Navy, he moved to Aspen to visit one of my friends, and they used to play in the local bars in Aspen. They used to play with John Denver before he was popular. Well, John Denver said, "Gee, can I record that song?" Which is "Thank God I'm a Country Boy." And John Summers never worked a day in his life with the royalties from that one song.
Danny, let me go to you and ask you that question as well.
Like I said earlier, originally for me, that I got to do this was that bluegrass jam in South Carolina, but it kind of fell away because I didn't have an instrument that was good to learn on. So fast forward to 2021 when I went to the Bluegrass Festival here in Washington, where I live, and I think it's the people coming together, and you could get 5, 6, 7 people who've never met each other, who've never played together, sit down around with some chairs and play a song like they've been playing it for years, like they've been rehearsing every day for years. And I mean, on time, harmonies like they've been practicing forever. And I was blown away by that. And so I just got this burning desire to want to jam. And I don't want to be in a band. At least I say that now. I don't want to be in a band. I just want to sit down and jam with people. Sit down and talk about bluegrass. And I am just so, that was my defining moment, that group of people together and just playing music like they've been playing it forever. And then they're also really welcoming to somebody who's, I showed up with a mandolin that had been in a case for 11 years. The strings were green. I couldn't do, I could barely play a chord. And they're like, join in with us. I sang a few songs because I've been listening to bluegrass, so I know the music. I sang a few songs. They sang along with me. I passed on the break, so I didn't play any leads. I just, played a couple chords and sang some songs. And that's what I really love about this music and music in general.
That's how it starts usually. And for those of you who are in the iJam series who join us every month to sit in and strum along with us, it's exactly how Danny describes it. You start easy, you kind of just go with the flow and you learn to play. And then as you start to feel more comfortable over time, it shows in your instrument and your playing. And then you step out of that comfort zone. It's like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do something a little more fancy. All right, guys. Well, thank you for those stories. Bruce, you're going to be coming up here in just a moment to feature that beautiful banjo of yours. But before I do that, I want to bring everyone back up on screen here. And how many of you have a desire to learn to play the banjo? Because we do have Bruce who's going to step us through that right now. He's going to take the next 5-10 minutes. Stick around because we still have the mandolin and we have the dobro. And if we have time, we may even fit in the ukulele. So, Bruce.
For me now, I started out, I was just like, gee, that'd be a cool instrument to play. But now I've really gotten into that old style, claw hammer style banjo. And the thing that's kind of unique with the old time banjo is I can't tell you how many different ways there are to tune it. I think when people started playing in, say, in Appalachia, they would tune the guitar for each song. The standard tuning for a banjo is open G. So that would be, the high string is G, and then D, G, B, D. I prefer what's called a double C tuning, which is high note still G, and then it's C, G, C, D. So you get this. So the whole thing with claw hammer is I use my thumb and my middle finger. So that's my, I really love claw hammer style. And then a couple of years ago, I'm in a band, and I'll show you my other banjo. I bought actually a gold tone. It's a baritone banjo, and it's tuned much lower. It's tuned to it's like C, G, C, E, G. So it has a totally different sound.
Hey, let me ask you this then. This is a different tuning, obviously. Is that how it usually works with that style banjo? Is tuned differently, or is it just like alternate tuning on a guitar?
Well, the banjo, I think it may have a little longer scale length.
Looks
So
like it, yeah.
it's tuned down a fifth from a regular banjo. So it just has, and I play this in one of my bands because it's original, mostly original music, but it's Americana, and I thought that and I only got this a couple of years ago because I thought it would really add a different dimension to the sound of our music, and it's a beautiful banjo. I mean, it's a gold tone, a Bela Fleck. It's heavy. It does have a resonator on it.
It looks more natural than all of the metal that I typically remember seeing on a banjo. The natural look is just beautiful.
Yeah,
and the inlays themselves.
Yeah, it's got great inlay. It's got that black top, and you can see the wear spots where my thumb is hitting the head. But
so they make different styles of banjos, obviously, as you're showing us. Have you ever played like the 4-string banjo? And do you know what the difference is with that?
I've always played a 5-string.
Different style, different genre of music, perhaps.
Yeah, I think the 4-string is used a lot in Celtic music. But yeah, no, this is just a 5-string. It has a 12-inch pot. Actually, both of these banjos have a 12-inch pot. A lot of times, most banjos have a 10-inch pot, but I like the bigger pot. I also stuck a piece of cloth underneath here. What it does is it gives me a more mellow sound. Without that, the sound is much sharper. But that just kind of smooths it out. And I have a capo, which so a lot of people say, well, how do you capo the 5th string?
Oh, yeah, true.
What I have, you can't see it, but I have these HO train nail spikes. And I've got it at the 5th and the 7th fret, actually the 7th and the 9th fret. So I can actually take the string and put it underneath that, that HO train railroad spike. You can also take a small screw and just slide it underneath the string. So there's just different ways of, capoing that 5th string. But yeah, this was built for me a couple, 7 or 8 years ago. It's got brass hardware. It's a walnut neck, walnut body. The only inlay is a striped bass, which I like to catch. This particular tailpiece is called a fielding, and I wanted to have that particular tailpiece because I really like the way they look. Well, it turns out when he built this banjo for me, Tom Fielding had passed away, but he managed to find one for me.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So let me ask you about the top. It almost looks like a drum head from someone who's never played banjo. So sorry. Is that like a snare or something? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. How?
Some people use gut, which has a different sound. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of the old time banjo players. They're fretless. They have, so that they can slide them, and a lot of times they'll use a gut head. but this is just like a drum head.
Got it. How often do those need to be replaced? I mean, and it looks like it pretty labor intensive because it's got all of the
Yeah, you
these
gotta
pulled in
you got all
pins.
these. You gotta unscrew it.
Exactly.
I've never replaced a head, and I've been playing. I mean, I've played banjo for a long time, and the only thing that happened. I mean, the banjo that I had that I sold to buy this one, the head was frosted, it was white,
Mhm.
and it had like in this area right here, it was black from just playing it so much. I think the only time it doesn't change its sound. I think the only time you'd want to replace it is if you break it.
Got it. Yeah. Hey, let me read something that Steve Vaughn wrote. In old days, a four-string banjo was for strumming, five for picking. So thank you, Steve, for that. Um, what are some of the costs associated with playing a banjo? I mean, obviously strings. Do you have any idea how much you usually have to fork out for strings or picks, finger picks? I mean, those are accessories that you might use.
Yeah, I buy strings in bulk because I play so many instruments and I change them a lot. You can get all kinds of finger picks. The first banjo that I got in the '60s actually had a pair. They're called National
Mhm.
finger picks. See if I can. Yeah, over here. I don't use finger picks on my banjo, but these National finger picks are collector's items. I mean,
Oh,
people are spending $30 for these things, and
for
I was
authentic
lucky enough.
sound.
There were four or five of them in the case. I think I have four left. They're National finger picks. So I I hardly ever use these. I typically use these on the pedal steel,
Mhm.
and then for the banjo and the dobro, I use brass. I think they're Dunlaps. Yeah, they're pretty heavies. They're pretty heavy because for the dobro, because the strings are they're really heavy strings and it's tightly strung. So these really work well. Thumb picks. I've got a box full of thumb picks, all kinds. I mean, it's just, you really need to find something that works for you. I mean, I typically use a fairly light thumb pick for both the banjo and the pedal steel. I mean, the pedal steel is, it's amplified, so I don't need a heavy pick for the pedal steel. Picks. I mean, we could talk forever about picks. Um, I use three or four different style picks for guitar, and I know this is not a guitar thing, but back in the day, everyone used tortoiseshell picks because that was, back in this, like in the '60s, and then they were out. They were banned because the turtles are endangered. A friend of mine managed to get his hands on a tortoiseshell, and he made me this tortoiseshell pick. It's $40. It doesn't leave my music room, but it has its own unique style. It has a different texture, so it sticks to your fingers. Um, that's pretty much it.
For guitar players, what what techniques might they be able to carry over to banjo, if any?
Finger style, definitely finger style. The claw hammer thing, that's a whole different. I mean, it takes a while to get that because I'm using my middle finger to hit different strings, and I'm backing up with my thumb. So that took a while for me to get a handle on that. I use my thumb and my middle finger. Other people use their thumb and their index finger.
Give us a minute of Bruce Bjork on banjo. Bruce, thank you. Thank you for sharing. The one question that I have is are there accessories to amplify a banjo? Say you're playing at an arena,
Yeah,
is it just a microphone? You just go up to a microphone and
I mean, the easiest thing to do is just mic it, with one of those Shure instrument mics. I actually have, actually have a thing that it clips onto here, and it has a tiny little mic, and it's a quarter-inch in, XLR out. And I was playing, and I can use that for both the banjo and the dobro. I was playing last night, and the PA system didn't have the ability for me to use the XL out. So last night I ordered a gold tone ABS-D gooseneck, and it's a dynamic mic, and so I can just use quarter-inch, and it actually has a little preamp, so it has EQ and volume. So I think that's going to show up on Tuesday. So when it shows up, my wife's going to say, "What's this? What's going on here?"
no shortage of toys.
Yeah, I got a lot of toys.
Bruce, thank you for the tour of the banjo itself. And if you are interested in finding out more about Bruce and information that he shared with banjo, by all means, drop it in the chat or online over at the Guitarist Vets Learning Center. And he's going to be back to talk about dobro, but right now we're going to bring up mandolin as the next instrument that we'll be focusing in on. And Danny Smith, who you've already met, is on deck to present this other very popular stringed instrument in the folk and bluegrass world. So, Danny, go ahead. Let's see what you got. First of all, why don't you tell us what kind of mandolin you do have? Is this one of your creations? First of all, it looks like it might be.
Yes. So this is the mandolin number 5 that I built. And I started off right away putting my wife's name on them. And this was my first one. And this I cut my own shell for this one. And this one right here, I had the shell made. You can see for somebody that doesn't do a lot of intricate shell work, it was so much better to just have somebody make it for me, and it looks a lot better. And also on my guitar, I also have my wife's name on it as well. And so nice. when it comes to the mandolins, they start off. This is a mandolin back that's uncarved. It's a piece of flame maple, and this is a one piece. So it's a single piece of maple. A lot of times I'll have wedges that are split right down the middle, and they're glued together, and they're called a book match set. And then I will get out my finger planes and some chisels, and I will carve the graduations on my mandolin to match the plans that I have, which are from an old Lloyd Loar, which is the Lloyd Loar mandolins are I guess you'd say the creme de la creme of mandolins when it comes to F style. Back in 23 and 24, Lloyd Loar was the Gibson master builder, and he built several hundred F5 style mandolins, and they were made famous when Bill Monroe, who is considered the father of bluegrass, when Bill Monroe broke out in the late 40s, early 50s, he really brought bluegrass to the forefront, or that style of music. He sped it. The music was faster with him and his brother Charlie Monroe. And then as time went on, he got a young banjo player named Earl Scruggs and a singer named Lester Flatt, and they really are the ones that made bluegrass what it is today, with the fast banjo, the fast mandolin. And so my mandolins are made using that Lloyd Loar specs. As far as this one, this is my number 5. That A style right there is number 6. And this one right here, like I said earlier, is number 7 in the works. And that's pretty much as far as my mandolin goes. There's a lot of mandolins out there. There's some really, really good builders. You can find U.S. made, handmade mandolins starting anywhere from $2,000 on up to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And if you really want to get into mandolin and you want to buy an old Lloyd Loar, you can find a few of them out there at like Carter's Vintage in Nashville for about $130,000. And so probably not an instrument to start on, but if you got any woodworking skills, there's some really nice kits you can buy. That's how I built my first one, and there's so much information on the internet to learn how to build something, and it's just a great passion to build something and then to sit down and play it.
My first mandolin, when I decided that I really love the sound of that instrument, was a Fender. Fender had put out its budget mandolin, and I thought I just want to get it and play around with it. And I mean, for me, it worked for what I needed to learn to play. And I thought, okay, I got the basics down. I think now I'll step up into something better. But yeah, I mean, if you're not looking to spend thousands of dollars, I mean, that's what I started on, and I learned a lot. And but when you, and I was telling Danny this earlier when before we came on air here, and it was like, God, the resonance coming out of that particular mandolin, it just rings. And I don't remember picking up any mandolin that I've played and have that level of resonance and just ringing for several seconds. Can you just strum that instrument?
Yeah. So the mandolin is not known for its sustain. And so if you ever watch a mandolin player, there's a lot of alternate picking. So you might hear somebody doing, and it's called tremolo. So if you listen to any old Bill Monroe, there's a lot of tremolo going on because it's really similar to the fiddle in a bluegrass band, where the fiddle is a melody instrument. The mandolin is a melody instrument, but it's also the percussion of the band. So the bass has the boom, and the guitar has the boom chuck, and the mandolin has the chop. So that's what the mandolin always plays, the backbeat in the band. And when it comes to sustain, you won't find that a lot in a lot of mandolins. But you brought up about getting into something at the entry stage. There's a lot of really good entry level mandolins out there. I'm not sure if Gold Tone makes mandolins, but they might possibly make mandolins.
Oh yeah, I've looked at some of them.
Yeah, and so there really are some really good entry levels. The Loar, Eastman has some mandolins under $1,000, and if you can get into a Loar for under 500, and they're really decent mandolins. They're just not made. They're not made in the U.S. Sometimes they're not made with a solid side or back. They might have a plywood type sides and back, but with a solid top. The solid top is where you're really going to get your sound from your instrument. The type of wood that's used. This is Adirondack spruce. That mandolin up there is Adirondack spruce. A lot of times you'll see Engelmann spruce, which is a little mellower. Sometimes you'll see cedar, which is a lot more mellow. The Adirondack spruce is that higher end, that harder when it comes to the softwoods, which the tops are softwood, sides and back are hardwoods. The harder the top is when you're using the softwood, the more bite you're going to get when you're playing that percussive chop. So
let me ask you about the strings.
Yes.
4 pairs.
4 pairs.
So now if you are a guitar player and you're just playing single strings, you're going to be moving into an instrument that may not be as easy to fret. But then that's me. What are your thoughts, Danny?
It's surprisingly easier to fret than a guitar, in my opinion, because the strings are close together. And a lot of times you'll find, especially as a new guitar player, when you're playing your chords, you tend to mute strings with your finger because everybody says they call it the fat finger syndrome, where your fingers are actually muting the string. Well, with the mandolin, you're literally trying to cover more area with your fingers, so that muting the strings is not as it's easier to become more precise when it comes to fretting. And for me, I found that because I learned on the banjo and the mandolin before I started learning guitar. Going to guitar, it felt a lot easier for me, and for what I like to do with guitar, learning the chords. Once I actually learned how to play the chords on the guitar, I would sit at home. I would sit on the couch and go back and forth from C to G, C to D. Just moving through my chords and counting in my head 1 2 3 4 change, 1 2 3 4 change, and all of that learning on the mandolin and fretting the two strings made it so much easier to fret on the guitar, if that makes any sense.
It does. There are 4 pairs of strings. Are they tuned in pairs, or
Yep.
do they 8 different tones?
So there are four strings are tuned in unison, and they're tuned. It's the exact tuning of a guitar from the E string to the G string. So it's upside down from the guitar. So the guitar would be E A D G. The mandolin is E A D G, and so your G chord looks like a G chord on a guitar, but it's upside down and backwards, if that makes any sense. And your C is the same thing. And your D is there or there for the full. So you're playing, if you think about the guitar, your guitar chords, you're literally playing the guitar chords upside down on the mandolin. And so that it really transfers well, it really does. Where a lot of people have trouble with the mandolin is playing the chop chords, because the chop chords require you to stretch. I'm playing on the 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 5th fret, and 7th fret, and so
That's a stretch.
it is. But once you figure out that chop chord, everything on the mandolin looks the same. So this is my G chop chord, this is my A chop chord, my B flat chop chord, and my B, and then I take everything up a string and it looks the same. That's my C chop chord, that's my D, that's my E, and my F. And so once you learn this basic chop chord here, it's relatable everywhere on the mandolin. Same with scales. To me, scales are probably the most beneficial thing for somebody who wants to learn to play melody-based music. So any type of bluegrass flat picking on guitar, mandolin, even banjo, learning some scales on the banjo. On the mandolin, it's so easy to learn scales because you could play closed position scales and they all look the same. So if somebody says we're going to play in B flat, all I got to do is find B flat with my index finger, and then my scale. That's my B flat scale, my G scale. It looks exactly the same if you think I'm playing here. It looks the same as this. So the scales look the same, and it makes it easier to learn your scales and to understand the degrees of the scales. And we talked earlier a little bit about, certain songs, learning the melody. For me, what I did is I sat down and I started learning some internal repertoire. How to play a certain song that I know in my head, that I know the melody for, something like what would be Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. If I had started on the Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star starts on the root note. And so... and then you can move that to any key. And that's been helpful for me translating to guitar and back and forth. So when I learn a fiddle tune on the mandolin, I can usually pick it out on the guitar or vice versa.
Danny, how about a demonstration? Why don't you give us a minute of Danny Smith on mandolin?
All right, I'll play a little Whiskey Before Breakfast.
Wonderful. Danny, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. One last question about that. Accessories. Are there accessories in addition to, say, strings that you typically think about when you're going all in with mandolin?
So for mandolin, a pick obviously, mandolin uses a little bit harder pick, and so I use a tone slab. This is it's really popular, kind of a shell copy type pick. So this is a triangle pick, and then if you use a rounded pick, it gives you a little mellower tone. Gives you a little mellower tone. I also have a tortoise shell that a friend gave me, and another tortoise shell that a friend gave me, and then I have the blue chip pick, which is also another really I guess you call it a boutique pick. So most of these picks are right around $30 to $40 a pick, and people are saying, why would you spend that much for a pick? Sometimes you just have addictions that you just need to fill, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
and there's one thing that on the mandolin that I really like, and that's this thing here. This is called a tone guard. So when you're playing your mandolin, it's such a small body, and you want to get as much. I think that's probably why you're hearing more sustain out of my mandolin, is this device right here. And it sits on the back of the mandolin, and it's got these little pads, and it's not screwed on. It's actually just put on with these. It's tensioned on using this spring steel, and you can see the two levers here, and it touches back here, and they just kind of squeeze onto the body of the mandolin. And so when I put the mandolin, when I've got my strap on, and the mandolin is on my shoulder, the body is not touching my body, so it allows it to have that sustain. If I had my back up against it, it would take away some of that sustain if I had the back up against my belly.
Makes sense. Last question, and then
yes,
we'll get to Bruce and the dobro. And that is amplification. If, say, for instance, you are you're usually playing with other musicians, maybe louder instruments, maybe not. Maybe they're outfitted with Adirondack spruce as well too, as we discussed in the Tonewoods presentation of a previous G4V Guitar Shop. But are there options for amplification?
There are. You can LR Bags has a couple things. They call them under bridge pickups, so they basically go underneath the bridge, and they'll wire down, and they'll have a little hook that hooks onto the F hole, and you can plug into.
Like that.
Most of the time, especially, I'm kind of a purist when it comes to bluegrass music. I'm really into that old one microphone style music, where the person singing and when you're singing, you're all in that one microphone, and when you're playing your break, you step up to the microphone, and the other instruments step back. And in a jam scenario where everybody's playing and there's no microphone, mostly it's the consideration of your other jammers that they just hold back with their sound while you're playing your break. And guitar is probably the only instrument that really in a jam session can't cut through that chop of the mandolin or the beat of the bass or even the banjo. But a lot of musicians will hold back their playing so that your break can be heard.
Let me go back to this. So
Yes.
This is the LR Bags,
Yes.
that thing, and it's you go ahead and plug in your 1/4 inch, and that will run to your amp. But my fiddle player in my band is also a mandolin player. He says, you know what, you need to do this. You need to amplify your instrument because your band, featuring a couple guitar players and the bass and rhythm section, you need to turn up. So that was thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, if your band is all amplified, you're probably going to want to amplify your instrument. If you're all one mic, then really that's not necessary.
Real good. Well, thank you for this tour of the mandolin and those beautiful instruments, the ones that you have built. Looking forward to that next one, number 7, right? So come back and give us a live performance someday. In the meantime, let me go and bring back Mr. Bjork, because Bruce is going to be taking us through an introduction of the dobro, another beautiful instrument that's associated with bluegrass and with folks. So what have you got there, Bruce? What is that?
This is a Deneve. I had this custom built for me in '92. It's all mahogany, and I'll talk about woods. But the dobro was developed. It's purely an American instrument. It was developed in the '30s by the Dopera brothers. Hence, it's called a dobro. Guitars. You didn't have amplification back in those days, and so you couldn't hear the guitar in an orchestra. So they came up with this resonator. So underneath here, there's a very thin aluminum cone, and the bridge is actually attached to what's called a spider. So there's like legs that touch on the outside of the cone, and so it acts as an amplifier. So it's loud.
Quite.
People started playing it as a round neck instrument, and then eventually evolved to what's called a square neck. So this is a square neck. So it's very heavy. You notice the strings are, they're like a half or more off of the neck. So you play it with a steel bar. It looks like this. And so I think for a guitar player, like I said, the tuning is very simple: GBD, GBD. So I think for a guitar player, the challenge is learning how to use your left hand and your right hand, because it's very easy for your intonation to be off. But it's a great. This instrument works really well. It's a classic bluegrass instrument. It's used in Americana. I was in a tribute band, I don't know, 8 years ago. We did the Eric Clapton Unplugged album, and I played the dobro. We did the whole album. So you can use it for that kind of music. So it has a unique sound. That's why I took it up. I like the sound of it, and so, like I say, I had this built for me in '92, and I think most of them are made. Actually, they use different woods. I think maple is pretty common. I don't like maple. That's my preference because it's a much brighter sound. I really prefer mahogany. Actually, that custom banjo was actually walnut, because I like the look of walnut. But right now there's not a lot of builders. I think Beard is probably the most famous, or they're the big builders. They have Mike Aldridge, who was one of the pioneers of the dobro. His dobro was made out of birch. The top was birch, and the back and sides were laminated, which is very uncommon. But if you can, listen to some of his, his songs, it's just a beautiful dobro player. The king of the dobro players, obviously, is Jerry Douglas. He, I don't know how many Grammys he has. He's just an incredible guy, and he's just a really nice, funny human being. He's incredible. He really has brought the dobro into the world of all different types of music. But again, I got it because I like the sound of it. So you either play it on your lap. A lot of times I play it standing up. The problem with standing up is that I don't have a strap lock here, and I don't know if you can see it. What I did was I got one of those neoprene washers, and I tuck it around this so that it's not going to come off. Mm-hmm. Because when I'm playing it standing up, obviously I'm not holding it. So it's again, the challenge is use the technique with the bar. You could do hammer-ons. You can do pull-offs. It's just got a cool sound.
Sure does. Let me ask you this: are there special strings, or are these just regular acoustic guitar strings?
They're regular. I mean, I use phosphor bronze. They're much heavier. I forget what the sets are, but they're much heavier. I mean, I think that they're heavy.
Do they actually make contact with the frets? Because
No.
it's so high, so it doesn't. So are the frets more like a marker for you?
They're actually these frets it's an inlay.
Oh, okay, nice.
This is the fret, the bar.
There you go. All right.
And so how do you capo it? I can show you how I capo it, because that's always a question. How the heck do you capo it? A dobro. Let me go grab it fast.
Okay. Well, it's I have to say that the dobro itself. I have a dobro player in my band, and just an acoustic guitar and a dobro, it's enough to kind of like, all right, I'm set. I'm good. This is a great combination, a great sound. So what Bruce is demonstrating for us right now, it's Americana. I know Jerry Douglas has been playing lately, I think, with Alison Krauss and Union Station. So if you're wanting to hear more,
he played with them for years.
He's played with them for years. But if you want to talk about a bluegrass band that is just like at the top of their game, I've always thought Alison Krauss and Union Station represents that, from guitar to mandolin to banjo to resonator to dobro. It's just amazing. So you got your head. Do you have the capoing system there?
So the other thing with the dobro is, and people have asked me about like pedal steel, for example. Having played this for like 30 plus years, I pretty much had the left hand and right hand down. So it made it easier for me to learn how to play the pedal steel, which is not an easy instrument. But to me, it's very linear. When you think about a guitar, you've got all these different chord shapes. With this instrument and the pedal steel, it's like, okay, we're in the key of G. I'm there. We're in the key of A. Okay. I don't have to. I'm not think. My left hand is just, So, capo, since there's no frets and it's really high off the fretboard, I've got this thing. I don't know if you can see it. It actually, what it does is it capos the strings up. So I can install this here, and then I tighten it up.
There you go.
And it's very heavy, so it gives you some nice sustain. But yeah,
Nice.
Live Pro Capo.
Nice. Are there any other accessories that you use? So you're obviously showing us the picks, and then the capo. Is there a special strap that you use? Is that?
Yeah, this is. I mean, there's all kinds of straps. This is a web. It's probably, I don't know. It's probably the cheapest one you can find, and it works fine. And when you use a strap, I mean, on my guitar, I mean, in my band, everything's strapped down here to the by the neck. The banjo, the strap goes through the headstock. And as far as the only accessory I can think of, actually, there are two. Obviously, miking it. There's different ways of miking it. There are some that are made specifically for the dobro. I think the Jerry Douglas Aura pedal is one. The other option, accessory, is what's called a hip shot, and it attaches here on the saddle, and it actually has levers, so you can change the tuning on the fly. Because this is the most common tuning is an open G. Some people like to play an open D, which is would be D A D F sharp A D. So with this hip shot or this lever thing, you can go from an open G and you're right away into an open D. It changes the tuning of all the strings.
Convenient.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool.
I think that's it. I mean, it's just, this can be used for all kinds of music. Blue. I play a lot of blues on it, a lot of country. I had a gig last night, and we were doing Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson. Oh, geez, the Byrds. So it was my first acoustic gig with these guys. So I've performed with them in the past on the pedal steel. So I had to transpose the pedal steel licks to the dobro, which was a kind of a challenge, because the pedal steel, it's all done with the knee levers and the pedals. On the dobro, it's all you're moving around with the slide.
You're gonna have to give us a demo on that the next time we do.
Pedal steel.
Absolutely, because I'll tell you, there are more instruments that we need to get to, and that was definitely one that was like, well, what about a demo on that? It's like, next time. We'll do it next time. Do you want to close your segment with a 1 minute demonstration of the dobro there, Bruce? And then we'll wrap things up.
One of the songs that I teach with Guitars for Vets is Amazing Grace. I actually teach it in the key of D and the key of G. Reason I teach that is that it's a fairly everyone knows it. It's not a difficult song, and in each one of those keys, you're basically just playing. You're using the notes in the scale. You don't have any accidentals. I mean, it's just strictly the notes of a scale. In the dobro, though, you get these drone notes. So.
Well. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool instrument. And again,
I have to tell you,
one of those instruments. I got it because I like the sound of it.
It's
same with the pedal
something
steel.
Very comforting. It doesn't like mandolin, banjo. They are definitely lead instruments. I mean, you can actually they cut through everything, but this dobro just kind of pulls things together nicely.
Yeah, I can also. The other thing that they're used for is like the mandolin is the chop.
Sure. Oh yeah. Versatile for sure. All right, Bruce. Thank you. I'm going to bring the panel back because I'd like to go ahead and close the show with any questions that you our audience has. And again, we appreciate you spending part of your Saturday with us to talk about these folk and bluegrass instruments. We didn't get to David. Unfortunately, we had some technical problems in the background, so we'll have to have him back. We didn't get to the ukulele either because just watching what Bruce and Danny have demonstrated with these instruments, we're so appreciative, guys. So thank you for that. But let's
great work.
let me just go through the upcoming events since we have you all here. So we've got the Intro to Acoustic Guitar Live event. It's the deep dive on Module 4. So if you've been attending the iTag series, the learning series with us, we're now at Module 4. The homework assignment is to look at the actual learning module in the G4V Learning Center. Make sure you familiarize yourself, and then we'll be circling back on Tuesday of next week, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Bring your guitar, because this is going to be an audience participation session. We've got the Guitar Brigade coming up. We're going to be revisiting the blues on Wednesday, April 17th. And then let's see here. We've got, we just recently posted a Song Sung True, A Veteran's View, featuring Malachias Gaskin, who shared some of his intimate stories and played some of his wonderful music. So if you're in the G4V Learning Center, be sure to check that out. All right. Keep playing that guitar, everyone. And if you have any questions, let us know. And until then, we will see you at the next live event. So please take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time.